Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the December 17th, 2025 meeting of the Bay City Planning Commission. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Tonight we have present Commissioners Dennis Banachak, Whitney Anderson, Sheila Turbot, Michael Burns, myself, Douglas Rise. We have not heard from Timothy Beckman, and I'm assuming Ashley will be just on time like she usually is, but she is not present currently. First order of agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes from November 19th, 2025. What is your pleasure? Second. I have a motion. Sheila, you seconded? And a second. Just as a comment, we did have a recording issue last month that's noted in the report that I think, Terry, you gave us, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, there was that issue.
Yeah, we had recording issues here in the commission chambers, and then we moved upstairs to 401, and that didn't work either. So we don't have a recording of what we discussed. But this is a good synopsis of the conversation that we had. Is there any other comments regarding the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is for public comment. Anyone from the public who wishes to make comment on anything that's not currently on our agenda, please come to the podium, sign in please, state your name, address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Paul Kleino, 1713 10th Street. Just a couple comments on things I've been paying attention to. So first, as you've likely seen in news around the state, there's a lot of discussions about data centers. I know Bay City's not really the type of location where we're going to expect any of those to pop up, although you could see smaller ones pop up in the fringes. They aren't all necessarily these mega complexes that cover, half an acre. They could be the size of a Meijer, something like that, right? And as far as electricity prices go, it's a big deal for people. Other counties, other areas of the state that are more vulnerable to this are putting moratoriums in place until they can figure out what to do with their zoning. I just want to point out that we're doing the zoning process right now, and it would be a great time to figure out what sort of public review or what sort of additional scrutiny, what zones we would want this in, if anywhere in the city, or if this should just be nowhere in the city and only out in the county. It's just something to consider that I think now would be the time to ask. And then I'm not sure if this was going to come up with the zoning discussion this month or maybe it would be next month. But I know there was discussions about setbacks and parking, and that's the sort of thing being discussed last month, this month, next month. So I just want to ask this commission to pay special mind to the barriers specifically around middle housing, your duplex, triplex, fourplexes. A lot of those setback limits and lot areas that were discussed, as I recall, last month are going to make it difficult for developers to be able to build those. And even as far as like mixed use business and residential areas, that's going to come up in tomorrow's ZBA meeting, I expect, in regards to the parking. We'll see when that comes up. But many other cities have done carve-outs around this, where either in certain areas of the city or in certain circumstances they can waive some of those requirements. For example, around transit hubs, some cities have set up rules where certain restrictions go away, or if you're building affordable housing, certain restrictions go away. And I just encourage this commission to be open to those sorts of ideas as they're talking about it. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to make public comment? Seeing no one address or approach the podium, we'll move on to next item on the agenda. We have one case before us tonight. This is case SU 25-08, 2709 South Euclid Avenue in the 6th Ward from Leonard Grossman. It's a special use and site plan approval requested to use a vacant lot zoned M1 industrial as a recreational vehicle storage yard. Terry, staff report?
Yep, thank you. Yeah, in the zoning ordinance, recreational vehicle storage is a permitted use in M1 and M2. There's no specific standard in the table of uses, unlike some other uses like outdoor storage. There's specific standards in which to require or guide the use of that property, but here it's a permitted use with special use approval. The lot itself that is being considered is 6,000 square foot area, basically a 60 by 100 foot area that would have some type of surface and then a fence around it. Because of the zoning district and not a budding residential, there's no screening requirement. There is a landscaping requirement, which is required in the M1. So that is what is being shown on the front of the 20-foot yard area there. The site plan does show, and I'll move to that, does show the setbacks being met. The question had to do with this milled surface. The definition of asphalt is, asphalt, concrete, or brick is what the zoning ordinance says. I have heard different people ask the question about the use of this surface. For this particular case, I tried to get some guidance from our city engineer, which it looked like there was kind of two positions that or two viewpoints that I had seen on that. I do believe that the Planning Commission has every right to discuss that type of surface and then make a determination of whether or not that is an acceptable form of asphalt. And if it wouldn't be, then the condition of the site plan approval would be that that become a paved surface of normal asphalt. In talking with some people and seeing some emails, this milled asphalt is always a question of how well the base has been established, how well the installation has been, so that, there is more to it because the base and all the other things that go with it to create it have to be done properly, or else it does fail and not serve the purpose that it was intended to. So having said that, I know the applicant is here, so I'll ask if they could come to the podium and maybe answer any questions that you might have. So it'd be Mr. Grossman, and what you can do is come right up here to this podium, and then it shouldn't take very long, and we'll just see what questions they might have for you.
Please sign in on the register.
Yeah, just sign in this form here. And we have a record of that.
State your name for us, please, and then you can make a presentation if you wish. Step right up to the mic. You need to speak right into it. You can pull it towards you.
Okay, right, yes. So my name's Leonard Grossman, and I own the property, 2709 South Euclid Avenue. And I got to start getting some income coming in. Right now, there's zero, I'll pay taxes and expenses. So I came up with an idea, along with my partner Chris, about outside storage, like RVs and boats. There's always a need for that. And I'm willing to put up the fence that's needed where the street is, put some nice trees and shrubs. And the basic question boils down now to the crushed asphalt. I know Chris had mentioned they've used that before, and you said it held up?
Yeah,
Pretty good.
as long as there's at least a 4-inch base and you properly roll it. And I spoke with the city engineer on the phone, and she had stated that with the amount of area that we're doing and it not being constant traffic itself, because it would just be parking, it's not like vehicles are coming in and out, that she wouldn't see where it would be an issue using that itself, so.
You just need that approval on the crushed asphalt.
Any commissioners have questions?
No questions, but I will have comments.
I do have a question, if I could ask it. Now, there's obviously not any structure being built as far as a building, so how will the arrangement be made? Will you have an access gate that somebody enters in a code? Is it self-supporting that way as far as the utilization of the lot?
It would be a 16-foot gantry gate with a gooseneck code on it for access, so there'd be multiple codes to where you can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
It would be like an outer fence, and then right in the front for them to get in, you'd have this.
Speak into the microphone, please. You need to speak right into the microphone.
Yeah,
We do record these sessions, and it's important that we get
Okay, sure.
what you're saying.
So that's what I was saying is, don't live here, but Chris does, so he would manage it for me. They would call him, and they'd punch the code, let him in, and we would write up, an order for a lease agreement on it. And it would be lit up, so there's lights. And plus, across the street, we have the sugar plant, extra protection.
You received a special use permit from the Planning Commission back in 2019, I believe. You were going to construct a different facility at that time.
Yeah, at that time I was, but the cost got way too high to put up a building for a marijuana grow. And then the price started going down, and it wasn't feasible. It wasn't a good business investment.
You did take the building down, though, on the site that was
there
there.
was never a building put up. I just had plans drawn up.
No, but I mean, there was,
Oh, the house, yes.
yeah, the house.
Yeah, I did. The house did come down, so it's just flat land now, all leveled. There's no house.
Where did you hear about the crushed asphalt from?
Well, Chris had mentioned it, and I thought it would be a good idea because to put solid asphalt would be very, very expensive, and we don't know how much business we're just starting we're going to get. So I would like to try the crushed asphalt, see how that works. I mean, with a big layer, like Chris was mentioning, underneath to support it. And you said you've seen RV, where they have had RVs and they've had the crushed asphalt. He's even showed me pictures, and it looks pretty good. It looks solid, especially with a solid base.
Who's the vendor that'll be doing if we approve that?
Doing the work?
Yeah, to do the work for the crushed asphalt.
Are you saying doing the work or to supply the crushed asphalt itself? We haven't decided on who's gonna do it yet. We were just basically waiting for the approval so we can move forward to see what we can have done that way. I do have a gentleman, I forgot the name of the business, but he does supply the crushed asphalt, and he may have somebody that can do it for us also. If not, I can do it myself also.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
Terry, is there anybody that's been allowed to have the crushed asphalt yet in the city?
Well, this has never been a decision for somebody to make yet, to my knowledge. The question is, you know, and I know that I had attempted to try to get some information from the city engineer to get their thoughts on it. You had heard some comments about what the city engineer thought. I also knew that one of the members of our planning commission is probably knowledgeable of this request. I thought maybe based on that experience, that information could be shared among the planning commission and have a discussion, because for me, the option was, do I send it to the zoning board of appeals for an interpretation as to what asphalt is and means, or because, you know, I've had some people ask about this form, then it was, okay, put together the information to try to make the case, and we'll let the planning commission hear about this product, and then if they feel that that is not something that would have longevity to it, then as a condition for the special use and site plan approval, then you could you know, require that the regular asphalt be used. So it was a matter of, you know, what information is out there about this product, and try to get that information from engineers who would be more familiar with it. And I guess in the end, if it's determined that it's not gonna serve that purpose, then it would also be the planning commission directing that, no, it does have to be that other surface. And then in the meantime, you know, well prior, back in October, November, you know, I was getting information to the city engineer. It sounds like what happened is there was communication with the city engineer initially that I made, and then the applicant also made. During that first call, it sounded like, okay, yep, know about this. I received a follow-up email that kind of had a much longer explanation about that viewpoint of what the city engineer's position would be on it. You know, it all falls back to the installation of it, and does the planning commission feel that that is a form of asphalt that will hold up and do that job.
I am remiss that I did not open a public hearing on this. This is an action that we are required to have a public hearing. So I will request a motion to open a public hearing on this case.
Request that we open a public hearing for this case?
Second.
I have motion and support to open public hearing on case issue, I lost it. Issue 2508. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Terry, continue.
So the zoning ordinance does not, you know, provide any specifications for, you know, creating a hard surface, for creating a base to that hard surface. It only states that it shall be of a hard surface of concrete, asphalt, or brick. So the question was, and you know, some people have said, well, that's a form, that is asphalt. Well, is it? I don't know. So I guess we have to look at the record of what this material is, and then make a determination as to what condition approval would be granted for it.
Well, my only thing is, if we are deciding that, then that's setting precedent that that is now an approved substance for a hardscape.
On this particular decision, it could be. Now, the only thing I would add is, again, we're going to be in those chapters of the zoning ordinance, and I think I had brought this up before because it has been a question as the price of asphalt goes up, and, you know, people sometimes ask about this, but, you know, the only thing I could say is that, well, I think there's still information that we have to hear, or hopefully have an opportunity to hear, as to whether or not this is that hard asphalt.
What if we got a company that does sell crushed asphalt, and if they guarantee that it's been used before for RVs and boats, and can prove that it does stand up, wouldn't that be an acceptable?
That would certainly be helpful, I think.
And I think we'll get more information in the business session, so I think there'll be more conversation during that period of the meeting.
They can prove.
I do have a question also. If it was gravel, would that make a difference as well? I do have a picture of a storage facility out in Frankenmuth that does have gravel as well. They got the storage facility, and then out back they have all their RV and boat storage and stuff. And it's about probably that thick of gravel, properly compacted, and they have it fenced out too.
Yeah, I can answer that because we have had a case that, due to some circumstances that were on that particular lot, they went to the Zoning Board of Appeals to get a variance from not for having gravel. So that one was something that only the Zoning Board of Appeals could weigh in on that. So that would be the other consideration too, is you know, trying to get a variance. But again, at that point, I think it should just be viewed as gravel if that's the case, versus asking the Planning Commission. Well, they would have a right to get to seek a variance. But
Correct. I'd like to see us proceed through our deliberations first, though, before we step. Any other questions for the applicant?
My wife has a question.
yeah, you got to come, ma'am. You need
You have to come up to the podium.
state your name and sign the record there, and
Hi, my name's Sally Grossman, and I'm Leonard's wife and Chris's friend. And I just wanted to know, could this be possibly used as a temporary surface just to get started, just to get a business started? And then, seeing if it picks up, then we'd be able to scale in some more funds and actually make a solid surface. That was my question.
they'll discuss that. Yep, they'll be able to discuss that during their business session.
Okay. Yep. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess we're all set for right now. Yep. You can have a seat. Please stick around if you want to hear what we decide. So now we're ready for any public comments. Anyone from the public who wishes to make comment on this application, please step forward, sign the register, state your name, and you'll have 5 minutes. Seeing no one step forward,
Do we
the
need a
applicant
motion to close
doesn't have
public
to
input?
respond to any questions that were as a result of public comment, so I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and second to close the public hearing on SU 25-08. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
And I will stay on record that there was no correspondence or phone calls regarding this application.
That was going to be my next question.
Okay.
We don't need to open the business section because that's what we move into now is the business section, and this will result in some action on our part. But I will open the floor to commissioners for comments or questions.
I'm going to start with the issue at hand being the parking lot material. As a civil engineer, I've dealt with all of these issues. And when I look at our ordinance, and they're calling for a hard surface, we don't actually spell it out as hot mix asphalt, but that is what I'm sure the intent is, because that is the hard surface that most people deal with when it comes to driving on an asphalt surface. Now, when we look at bit millings, which is what the industry term is, they are exactly that. You have a milling machine with teeth on it that goes in and it'll take off a layer of asphalt. Normally, when you do that, you're putting a fresh layer of asphalt back in its place. It's called a mill and resurface. And those millings end up in a pile someplace. If you drive down M13 and go underneath the Milwaukee Bridge and look to your right, you'll see huge piles of these things. Now, there are areas where using the millings makes perfect sense, but because of the way the ordinance is written, and we're talking about a hard surface, I don't think the millings meet the requirement. And I want to explain something else about the millings because there are different levels of what could be used. But if you look at what we have, gravel was mentioned, then we got hot mix asphalt, and in between, we have millings. And there's different things that can be done. You can just pour them on the ground and call it good. You can put them down, put an emulsifier in, and recompact them. You can put down a base course, put the millings down, do another emulsifier course, and compact them so that you have a surface. Now, it's not as good as hot mix asphalt. And one of the problems with the bit tillings, just like with the gravel lot, vehicles coming and going are tracking that material out into the road. Gravel, it's just something we're used to. When it comes to the bit tillings, because of the asphalt content of the material, it's a lot stickier, especially in the summer months. So anybody moving on and off the site is going to be tracking those millings out into the road. Now, in that area, we got Michigan Sugar, and they have a lot of dirt on the road because of the trucks, and they run sweepers up and down that street all the time. But I don't think it's fair to them to expect them to clean up the mess that this parking lot will make if it's bit millings. So I'm looking at it in terms of what our ordinance calls for, and our ordinance calls for a hard surface, which to me would be hot mix asphalt. In terms of using it as a temporary surface, I don't think we have a mechanism in the ordinance to allow that. I mean, that'd almost be like spot zoning something. So I don't think that's even a possibility. So as I'm looking at this, the location is fine, the landscaping, the fence, all the stuff that they intend to do that we'll go through in our standards when we do the approval or denial is fine. But the millings just aren't where they need to be in terms of what our ordinance is calling for. And you can agree with me or not, but like I said, being a civil engineer, I've dealt with this stuff for many years. We have some material here that talks about RAP. RAP is recycled asphalt pavement, which is basically the millings. But in terms of what we specify, you can use those up to 30% mixed in with regular base course gravel when you're building a road. Recycled asphalt pavement is done that way because it's just like concrete. You can bust up concrete to the same size as a regular stone that would be used for a base course. So those are where those things come in. really, the recycled asphalt pavement doesn't apply the way it did in the articles that we were given. So when we're looking at using the millings, I just do not believe that it meets the requirements of a hard surface. Thank you.
Terry, what was your success in talking with the city engineer?
Well, there was an initial reply, which was more abbreviated than the other email that I received. It went into explaining, similar to what Dennis is stating, as far as the type of what is called, you know, in the email it talks about the not only the application, but the intensity of use. I know that when I replied to the email back to her after reading it, you know, I did even state to her that it seems that it's of the opinion now that it wouldn't be a hard surface. So, yeah, it sounds like that is going to be the case. It's not a hard surface. Now that we know more about the milled asphalt, so thank you. But yeah, I think if we were to do a poll, that we would say that that is not going to be a hard surface.
Can I ask a question in regards to why, on page 1 of the report, under the departmental reviews, engineering said that they don't review it because it's the Bay County Road Commission?
Yeah, on South Euclid, similar to Wilder, when a site plan is coming through, it's not the city engineer that is doing the review, it's the road commission, because on that shared township line road, I don't know if there's agreement or policy or whatever, but it is under the jurisdiction of the road commission. And if you think of Euclid, which is also a dividing line of the township and the city, it's MDOT up until Salzburg, and then south of Salzburg, that road project that they did just last year, that was done by the Bay City Road Commission. So that's a shared jurisdiction road because of it being on the city and township boundary, and it does go to the road commission for that. So this would be under the jurisdiction. And then the way I read her additional comment was the question about stormwater. I was trying to get that answered, and she answers the question that way for the stormwater question too. That it's of low enough size that a stormwater permit would not be required.
Did we get a review completed by the road commission?
Yeah, and I apologize because I was intending to include that just because he made a good statement as far as, and I do apologize that I didn't, because I had every intent of, oh, right there, see Exhibit A, and I don't believe you received a copy of that exhibit. Yep, so that's on me that I didn't, I intended to have that Exhibit A. It'd only take me, well, let me see if I have it. I should have it printed in here.
The thing to keep in mind is that the jurisdiction of the road commission or the city engineer is limited by the right-of-way. So the only comments we get out of the road commissioner would be, is the drive approach itself correct? And since this was installed last year during the rest of the work, and I've driven by, it's an adequate entrance.
And that's why I was asking that question, because the drive approach itself is going to be subject to more use than any other part of that parking area. And if it's not going to stand up because of the nature of this material, then it's probably pretty obvious that the rest of it wouldn't either.
No, this material will not be in the right-of-way.
Right.
The entrance that's there is concrete, and it'll be more than sufficient for any use. You look at that, when it comes up right after the two returns, the arcs where they end, that's at the end of the right-of-way, that is all concrete. So that will suffice. But the drive going into the property and the storage area are where the asphalt millings would be going. And like I said, you know, taking a look at this, I can just see it being tracked out into the roadway. And that's just not going to work.
Yeah, I hadn't interpreted it that way. It looked like the drive approach itself was going to be all part of that crushed asphalt.
If you look off to the left of it, you can see it says existing drive, or existing opening, written in by hand. There's an arrow pointing to that approach from the left. You can see it.
It's got handwritten EX next to the opening, so
Correct, existing opening.
existing. Well,
Engineers like to abbreviate.
is an existing opening a paved drive approach, or is it just an opening?
No, it's concrete. It's like I said, it's a serviceable drive. There's nothing wrong with it. It was installed when they did the rest of the roadway. It's just where it is where it is, and that's what he's got to work with.
Okay.
The information we got from the Office of Environmental Remediation, there were some notes on the second page about MDOT having some projects that they say, you know, it sounds positive. Is it not? I mean, it is hard, isn't it, the asphalt, when it gets completed?
Just
And
like
that's maybe-
gravel, if you, say you had an RV that you're moving onto the site, just like gravel will move around, so will the bit tailings, the millings, they will actually move around as well under pressure. They're not solid like a hot mix asphalt will be. They're closer to the consistency of hard gravel. So it is, if you want to call it a hard surface, hard, but it's not meeting the definition of what the ordinance is calling for in terms of a hard surface.
Okay, it's not really melted together?
No, it
Doesn't-
could be compacted, but you know, even if they put emulsifier in it to try and get it to stick better and then compact it, it's still going to move around. It'll rut a lot more easily than regular asphalt.
Okay.
Dennis, do you know from your professional experience whether that note says MDOT also continues to meet with industry and academia regarding new technologies and research related to recycled tires, but then it talks about reclaimed asphalt pavement, the RAP, or recycled asphalt shingles. It continues to base acceptance of asphalt mixes, including those containing RAP-RAS, on a combination of field inspection and testing. Do we know of any empirical studies that have been done on that?
Like I said, in my office, we limit the amount of recycled asphalt pavement in base courses to 30%. The reason for that is we're contaminating what would normally be a regular limestone base course, but it is allowed. And we're going by empirical data from other states where they've allowed it, but that's just in our office. As far as MDOT is concerned, I don't think they actually have a standard. I'd have to double check with their green book and see where that was at, but in terms of the tires, basically what they do with the tires is they melt the rubber down and they add it to the emulsion. And I have to smile because I've done a lot of township roads using it simply because it was subsidized because of the tires. And the pavement isn't any better, it isn't any worse, but it's got that extra little bit of rubber mixed in, so that makes it better, and that makes the subsidy actual.
Well, that's on the tires, but not on the asphalt, recycled asphalt material.
No, the recycled asphalt material, like I said, is basically a contaminant, but it's allowed to be mixed in to your base course to whatever percentage, the project is allowing. I don't know if MDOT actually has a standard. All I know is what we do in our office, and that's the 30% maximum.
Sounds like we could do that as a condition here if we were so willing to, but I just put that out there.
No, it's basically a way to use a waste product for all intents and purposes. Rather than leave it sit in piles near an asphalt batch plant, you can put it in your base course of the road you're building.
Oh, right, absolutely. And I don't necessarily have an objection to that, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that we're true to the intent of the zoning ordinance, and it does say hard surface. So we just have to make a determination whether this or some percentage of this material would be acceptable.
What we would need to do would be, we'd need to come up with a specification that the city engineer would approve of in terms of how this material is laid down. How thick a base, of what material, how much of the millings would be allowed to be placed in terms of lifts. For instance, you might get 4 inches of it, but you gotta do it in 2-inch lifts. And the amount of emulsifier that would have to be added before compaction. All of these things would have to be approved by the engineer and be in the engineering guidelines of the city before we could definitively say that it should be allowed.
So, Terry, I'll point this question to you. Is that something that the city engineer would be willing to do?
Well, I believe the reply that I received was, as stated in the staff report, let me make sure I've got that. Yeah, I didn't receive any comment on that question, so let's see. I know the city engineering has on their webpage and have available the specifications for any work that is required as part of a permit that's in the road right-of-way. So they're directed as to the thickness and all those different things. My concern or comment is that it seems like if it's on private property, then she's going to say it's at, the decision of the planning commission. So I guess the dilemma for the planners is to come up with some specifications and possibly codify it so it is in the code of ordinance as one of the standards, just like other uses have standards of uses. And then you refer to that chapter or section to find out, based on this use, here's some of the standards that apply. And then within the context of that, work with our consultant to develop some type of a standard. But to answer the question, will the city engineer work with me to do that? She probably would do that, but as far as requiring it, I think her answer would probably be, well, that's up to you guys on the private property. Because everything that I can think of in the city code of ordinance regarding some of those other departments are all within, that ordinance. So if it's streets, it's talking about the streets. Anything like that is going to be in another code through engineering. And if it's on private property, they're probably going to say then our regulations or standards wouldn't apply. That's where zoning standards would have to apply.
Zoning standards apply whenever we have a parking lot or some facility that requires our approval.
Right.
So whether it's on private property or not, if we make that a condition, then it has to be adhered to.
And I think because the term seems like anyway, it's being thrown out there more, maybe the zoning ordinance could even state that milled surface parking lots are not permitted, and then that question surely would have been answered. But again, it doesn't prohibit it either. So the other possibility is to create the ordinance where, you know, that is prohibited, and then it wouldn't come back. Or make it allowable, but then all the standards have to be. Because either way, the engineers that I talked to, either way, it came back to how it's installed, and it has to be installed properly. And, you know, the other thing is too, when we do follow-up site plan review, you know, I'm not out there testing grade of asphalt or anything like that. So the other question would be, maybe Dennis might know this, would a project manager have to be on site to make sure that, you know, the conditions are properly laid? Have you seen that where you had somebody specifically monitoring to make sure that, you know, it was done right?
What we call that term is inspection. Yesterday, I was out on Garfield and Fisher Road in the freezing cold inspecting a sanitary sewer being installed.
Yeah.
So when it comes to something like this, it's more going to be the reputation of the firm that's doing the work, whether they are knowledgeable, what methods they use. And again, we have no standard to go by for this.
Right, that's my,
So it would just be a crapshoot for the most part if we said, go ahead and do it.
right,
And I'm not comfortable going that route.
yep.
So,
This document that you passed out to us, Terry, was from the engineering department?
This is the form that I send to the different reviewers. So in this particular case, the Bay City Road Commission. So my portion is just on the top there describing what it was. And, you know, you can even see in the description, I said, the claim being made is milled asphalt is a form of asphalt. And then this specific reply that you have a copy of is from the Road Commission, Jim Lulo.
So it's only referring to the drive approaches you alluded to,
Right.
Dennis.
from the way this is written, it appears that they put the material all the way out to the edge of the roadway, as opposed to what's being proposed here for this, this project. The M opening, the M.M opening that they're talking about, is the concrete drive approach that's already in existence at this location.
That's what I understood.
Yep.
So that's not helping us in terms of the hard surface. And I'm not, we have an ordinance that specifies a hard surface, an asphalt hard surface, and does not elaborate any further than that. And I'm not a technically oriented person in terms of the specifics for that, so I'm not going to read into it. Asphalt is asphalt. And we can certainly talk with our consultant. We're at a point where we're making changes to the zoning ordinance, but where we stand right now, unless we want to postpone this for another month and get more information, that might be another option for us.
When I mentioned hot mix asphalt, that is what you traditionally see being put down on roadways. You have the trucks backing up to the machine, dumping hot asphalt in. It gets laid down through the machine, and then it gets compacted with a roller. That is what our roadways are typically made of. That is a hard surface. So when we're looking at this, it is not hot mix asphalt. And after we're done here, I think that's one of the things we need to add to our ordinance, not just call out asphalt, because that's a term that could be looked at generically, but to actually put down hot mix asphalt so that there's no possibility for misrepresentation.
Have any other discussion that anybody wants to bring forth? We have two issues here. One being that a special use has been requested and site plan approval. So I guess I'm not sure where we stand. What do we do first, the special use, or do we do the special use with the site plan?
Yeah, it does go concurrently, so when the decision is made, it's a review of the site plan to make sure that the use would be allowed in those areas or that zoning.
Go ahead and read that, Mike. Oh, Sheila, you looked it up.
Well, I just looked it up and it says milled asphalt is considered a hard, durable surface, especially after compaction, as it hardens and bonds over time, creating a stable, semi-permanent layer that's resistant to weather and heavy traffic, much like regular asphalt, but often with a rougher texture initially.
But that said milled, M-I-L-L-E-D, milled, which goes back to your comment, Dennis. It says milled asphalt. So it's not a recycled asphalt material.
No, like I said, recycled asphalt material is just an extra component in a base course. For instance, we'll call out, say, 8 inches of 6A stone, which is a regular gradation that we typically use for base. We also allow up to 30% recycled asphalt pavement to be mixed in with that stone, which is where I said earlier, it is literally a contaminant, but it is acceptable to be used only in terms of trying to get rid of a waste product. You can also use crushed concrete the same way. Rather than fresh limestone, you can take concrete that's been recycled and crushed down into the proper size and add that into your base course the same way wrap is added.
As the aggregate, right? Well, what's the pleasure of the body?
I'd like to approve this with the contingency.
All right, make the motion.
All right, I make the motion that we approve SU 2508 based on the fact that the proposed special use will not impair the public health, safety, or welfare. The proposed special use is appropriate for its proposed location and is compatible with the character of surrounding land uses and the uses permitted in the zoning district in which its surrounding property is located. The proposed special use complies with applicable zoning district regulations. The proposed special use complies with the applicable standards for specific uses set forth in Article 21, Standards for Specific Uses. The location and design of the proposed special use minimizes any potential adverse effects of the use on adjacent property by avoiding significant adverse impact related to parking, loading, delivery, storage, and service areas, odors, noise, glare, vibration, and other potential nuisances. The location and design of the driveway is safe in relation to the streets, providing access to the use. Access to the use is designed to minimize conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians and with traffic using adjacent streets and driveways. Vehicular circulation shall be designed to be safe and convenient. The off-street parking area, however, does not apply or does not comply with the provisions of Article 17. Therefore, I'm making it contingent upon actual hot mix asphalt being used to pave the parking area. Green belts, landscaping, and screening are provided in accordance with the regulations of Article 18. Walls and fences, the fences here are for security, so they must comply with the provisions of Article 19. Signs comply. If they put them up, they will have to. There's no reason for a refuse receptacle at this location. All exterior lighting would have to be designed to comply with the regulations of Section 12260. I don't think there is lighting proposed at this time. Access routes to all building structures and uses are provided for emergency service vehicles. And public utilities are available in accordance with the regulations of public utility providers. Stormwater management, it will have to be something that the engineer will discuss with the client. Public utilities are provided in accordance with the regulations of public utility providers. As I said, the stormwater management will be up to the city engineer to decide. With that, I move approval with the contingency of SU 2508.
Support.
I have support, I have a motion and support to approve SU 25-08 with contingency on the hot mixed asphalt under section 17 of the ordinance. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Oh. All right, we have no other cases before us. We move on to staff updates. Terry?
Yeah, as stated at the November meeting, our consultant will be back in Bay City for the January meeting. So we'll be rolling back into that. The zoning enforcement officer position has been posted. We're receiving applications. I know at the start of the meeting, sometimes I get off track myself, but I think all of you were introduced to Adam Pruitt, our community development planner. He started the week before of Thanksgiving, so he's been with us for, close to a month now. So Adam, primary role as a staff liaison to the Historic District Commission, but by no means does he only do the historic preservation stuff, because as he knows right now, we're working through that zoning ordinance, so we've been having our staff meetings with the consultant. We've all been at the table to move that forward with our suggestions, so Joe will be bringing any updates to that. I can state there was a conversation before the meeting about the membership, because some members received a letter that their term expired. So just as a kind of a reminder, after we reviewed that, and I think I have a copy for everybody to have a copy. So basically, the terms expire in October of 21st of each year. And then the two terms that were expiring this year was Sheila Turbett and Ashley Meyer. So expecting that both of them will fill out an application. They do need to reapply through the city manager's office. And then we'll get those appointments. We do have in the bylaws, because these terms expire in October, I guess ideally they would be seated by November, because in November the bylaws say that the election of officers takes place. So I think we did this last year. We can either call for the election of officers at the January meeting, hoping that, there's a possibility that these might be filled because there maybe just be reappointments. So again, we should probably wait till we get the reappointments and then do the election of officers. Or it's the desire of the Planning Commission. Right
Without
now,
objection, I'll postpone the elections until January. Hearing none, we'll wait till January.
okay, thank you. I don't have any other staff updates, unless I have a question, but no.
Welcome, Adam. And we do have a guest in the audience today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Should I sign in too? No. I'm Laura Kubit. I am the First Ward Commissioner, and Pardon me. I think that I will likely be appointed as a liaison to this group. So I'm just here tonight to observe, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to joining you on a more regular basis.
Welcome, and we'd be happy to have you on a regular basis. It's been quite a while since we'd had an actively participating liaison, so thank you. Do we have anything else on the agenda? Or is there anything not on the agenda that any commissioner would like to discuss? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Have motion and support to adjourn.
All right,
All in
thank
favor?
you. Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Yep,
Merry Christmas, everybody, yes.
yes, yep, Merry Christmas. Thank you for your
Turned at 7:32.
This is where I got to remember to go hit that.